Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
And welcome back to another edition of Talking Books and Writing and Stuff and all sorts of neat things. Today we have with us from Eastern Canada near the Perth, Ontario area, a first-time author, name of Leo Valiquette. So, Leo, how are things going? I understand 2022 was a pretty busy year for you, is that right?
Yeah, well, it all started the previous fall, where I published my first novel at the same time I underwent brain surgery to remove a cancer tumor. It's been a rather eventful period.
Wow. And you have a son with some problems, and your wife started a new job, so you got all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah, my son was diagnosed at age 3 with autism, and he had some other intellectual challenges too. So he just turned 18, so he's reached that age where now it's looking into supports and programs for him as an adult that'll help him out. And but me and Mom aren't going anywhere anytime soon, so he'll be continuing to live with us.
Well, that's good. And Leo Valiquette, like I said, is here. He's got a new book. Actually, his first book is out. It's called Bane of All Things. But let's backtrack a bit, Leo. And what started you on your writing journey?
Well, I like to tell people this is my first published book, but it's definitely not my first. I guess I just have always had an interest in fiction. I think it all started, it always started with two things. When I was 7 years old, my mother got a membership to that old mail order Doubleday book club, and that used to be around back in the day, where you get your first 4 books for $1.
Yep.
And she ordered me. This was 1977, so she ordered me the novelization of Star Wars and 3 E.B. White's books, Stuart Little, Trumpet of the Swan, and Charlotte's Web. So that and then the following year, in my grade 3 teacher read us The Hobbit in class, so it kind of set the track, I think, for there.
The Hobbit, you read that when you were in grade 3? I didn't read it until I was in my 50s. I don't understand how you could understand that at grade 3. I can't understand it now, even though I liked it.
Well, I was a weird kid and always had my nose in the book, and she my teacher couldn't finish it in the school year, so I asked to borrow it over the summer to read it. And then I was a weird kid where I started reading stuff like that, and then I took this, by grade 6 and 7, I took a weird twist to start reading my mother's bookshelf of historical fiction and stuff like that. And then I really came back hard to the sci-fi and fantasy in high school.
So tell us a little bit about Bane of All Things. It's all about the 4 kingdoms and the holy clerisy who have preached that the gods are dead, prayer is the path to hell, anyone who defines doctrine is punished, but a hero arises. So give us a thumbnail sketch, if you can, about Bane of All Things.
Yeah, well, it's a secondary world fantasy, so it takes place in a fictional world, not ours. And the hero is a bit of a broken, disillusioned fellow, I guess, with a bit of traumatic stress, because he's rather idealistic, and he's following a path that he thought would be take him on a path of, I wouldn't say righteousness, but he's got a very strong moral compass, but he gets torn between duty to the church he's sworn to and his conscience, and he blames no one but himself for this, but he put duty over conscience on one night, and it left a village under attack and without help. So 36 people died, and he wears that on him, never forgets it. And this, interestingly enough, has kind of left him with a void and a need that makes him a bit vulnerable to a certain relic that has a mind of its own and an agenda of its own. And it's all tied up with, as I say in the log line, it's all tied up with dead gods who want to murder their parents, and a lot of conflict between making choices that are right for you and that you can sleep with, and then having on the oaths and that you swear to institutions. I don't want to get too political, but it kind of touches on a lot of aspects like that.
And you also have, I'm looking at your website, leovaliquette.com, and there's this extensive map of Ilaria and the adjacent lands. And you came up with this on your own, I assume?
Yeah, that started, I say this, the original idea for the story started as a piece of short fiction in the late 90s. And I've worked on a number of different things over the years, but that map, whether it started with the original, started as markers and bristle board, but it's always been there. And to me, a great piece of fantasy fiction or any fiction that takes place in a place that's not the here and now that people are familiar with, I think, in my personal opinion, needs a good map to go with it. So that's actually. But it's amazing the tools that authors have available to them these days. My publisher didn't really have it in the design budget to hire a graphic designer to do the map, or redo the map, I should say. So I discovered there's this great new software program called Incarnate with a very low annual subscription fee, and I built that map from scratch, learning the tool on the fly in just a couple weeks. Here and there.
What's the name of that software again?
It's called Incarnate, or like Incarnate. Yeah, but with a K. And it's just an online subscription-based software, and it's basically tailored. There's several different types of software like that out there, but basically it's tailored for map making for fantasy fiction authors or role playing. Dungeons and Dragons role players and all that kind of thing.
And the cover art, how did you come up with the cover art for Bane of All Things?
Well, that is, my publisher works with a couple different graphic designers, and that fellow, Tim Barber from the UK, actually was, my publisher engaged him to work on the design, and he came and asked me more details of the book and all that, and then my one of the editors at the publisher, who's done the final edit critique on the manuscript before we send it to press, he had his own thoughts on what was something that really stuck out. We wanted to avoid kind of the typical fantasy covers that often feature a character or the back of a character's head, or a lot of these things that have just been really overdone, especially by prepackaged art that's out there. So the first third of the story kind of starts, and then the whole story pivots on what happens at this place called Dragon's Claw Abbey. So so there's a description of it, of course, in the book, and for Noah, from my publisher, for him it was a really galvanizing place. So we wanted to try something different than just having a person on the cover. We decided to go with a bit of a dramatic scene, and what's really interesting about that cover is that it's not it's an imaginary play, but the cover is actually using a picture of Carcassonne. It's a medieval citadel that's in southern France. So Tim started with a picture of that castle on a nice sunny day, high up on the sandy bluff and stony cliff on which it sits, and turned it into that image of a windswept and storm-ridden night up on the ocean coast somewhere. So it's amazing for me to go through that process for the first time with a cover designer and see how they start off with just with an actual photograph, and then as a base, and then they can so cleverly and completely alter it into standing in for something else. So see the two pictures beside each other, it's like, oh yeah, that's that place.
That place, yeah.
You would never think it if you were looking at, if you started searching, if you didn't know the place to begin with, you'd be hard pressed to say, where on earth is that actual place as it looks on the cover of the book.
Gotcha. Yeah, it is quite a spooky yet intriguing design, and it's like the castle overlooking the stormy sea, and it does look like it's at the end of the world, so to speak. So, Leo Valiquette, the author of Bane of All Things, which is book 1 of A Silence of Worlds, which leads me to believe there's a book 2 coming. Is that right?
There's a book 2 written, and it's just a matter of when my publisher is ready to take it into production. So I work with a small press out of California and like a lot of small press publishers these days, they've all, at the best of times, small press publishers are heroically bringing books to market and competing with the big publishers that have the big budgets and the big marketing pockets and all that kind of fun stuff. And a lot of small presses, really got hit hard by the pandemic with the impact on bookstore closures and interruptions to the supply chain for commercial printers and you name it. So things are getting back on an even keel now, and hopefully we'll have some word from my publisher in a few months about when we might actually have a release date or something for the second book. And
Ink Shares is your publisher. Ink Shares, how did you get in touch with them?
Well, it's something I tell anyone who's looking to get published or connect with an author community is network. And in my case, I'm been engaged for over a decade with the local writers community in the area with an annual writers conference we have here called CanCon, which is short for Canadian Content and Speculative Fiction. And one of the fellow local authors had already, through a referral from someone else, had found his way to Ink Shares, and so after reading more about it through him and poking around myself, I decided to take a dive. And the thing about Ink Shares is that it's founded on the idea of finding different and more unorthodox ways to find new talent to work with and publish, aside from the usual gatekeepers of traditional publishing. So in my case, if I could come to the table with if I could use their platform, it's kind of like crowdfunding, but instead of raising dollars, you're trying to sell pre-orders of books, and you aren't selling them, or you're not handling the money. The Ink Shares is. So if you can, it's an all or nothing crowdfund. So if Ink Shares likes what they see with your work, and you can hit a decent target on a pre-order campaign, then they would take you into production. And if you didn't, and they weren't happy, then everyone who pre-ordered a copy would get a refund. But what that allowed, if with projects like that were successful, what would happen is Ink Shares would take the book into production. All the dollars that were raised from the pre-orders would go into production and marketing costs.
Yep.
And then when the book actually publishes, the royalty split with the author is higher, pretty high, significantly higher in some cases than the industry average. So as the author, you get a higher split in the end. That's one model they try. They continue to kind of try and do different things to kind of, because we so often hear, and I've experienced it, and so have people I know. The challenges that are faced now with breaking into as a new author into the traditional market. So Ink Shares continues to kind of consider different ways that it can give authors a fair shake and on their work and find ways to bring them to market.
Gotcha. That's Ink Shares. You can look it up online. And how about your schedule? What's a typical, or do you have a typical day? What's a typical day like in the life of Leo Valiquette?
Well, the typical day in the life of Leo Valiquette, for cancer sideswiped me again, a year and a half ago, was I used to be, I went back to school for journalism in the late 90s, and then I ended up as editor of a local business publication called the Ottawa Business Journal, and did that for a while. And then I left and became a freelance marketing communications consultant, working mostly with professional services firms and local tech companies. So the old joke, you become a freelancer, you eat what you kill, and if you don't kill them, you're not going to eat. So I did that. So that was where I was. They gave me a lot of flexibility to pursue, the fiction career while still bringing in a paycheck and a roof over my family's head. So, which is always the delicate balance. It's hard to believe. 3 years ago now, I was diagnosed with cancer. And the first year of that, I was able to undergo treatment and surgery and continue to work as I always had. But then the cancer metastasized and spread on me 16 months ago.
Okay.
And at the time it metastasized to the brain, so I had to have additional surgery and get into radiation treatment, and that decided to spread a little farther south and go down my spine, and then I was in additional treatment. And so through all that, of course, my capacity, just my physical and mental capacity to stay gainfully employed and do a lot of anything was seriously sidelined for a period of time. And right now I'm in a good place right now on treatment and recovery. The treatment appears to be working.
Oh, good.
But which is good, yes, definitely.
Good.
Although the treatment itself is kind of a major source of brain fog and fatigue. So I'm kind of I'm taking I'm not really working for dollars right now, and I'm at a far reduced capacity than I normally would be for doing a lot of anything. But if all continues to go well and I complete the run of it's gene therapy treatment that I'm on. If I complete that, I will. I'll complete that in May, and if all continues to go well from there, I'll probably getting back to the saddle for too long after that.
Wow. Well, good luck to you in your continued journey. A couple more questions before. Where can we find your books? Where we can get them?
Well, it's the book is in various chapters, Indigo locations right now. Although I know right now they're having a bit of a issue with their website.
Oh yeah, I know.
Get there right now, but
right.
yeah. But the book can pretty much, if it's not in store at your favorite local bookstore, the odds are they have it in the catalog and they can order it in for in-store pickup, and then you can find it on Amazon and again like Chapters Indigo and all the usual places. And
your website, spell that out for us, please.
It is leovaliquette.com. So that's LEOVALIQUETTE. Sorry, blah blah blah. Let's try that again.
Yeah, that's Leo Valiquette. I'll do it. It's
LEO. Pardon?
I'll do it. LEOVALIQUETTE.com. LeoValiquette.com for the Bane of All Things. Yep. And the next one that's coming out hopefully quite soon in the series, Silence of Worlds. Bane of All Things is book 1. So if you like your Lord of the Rings and your books like that and stories and what it's fantasy world, you're going to love this one. Leo, thank you very much for talking with us today, and continued good luck and success.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.ca. TK. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at Amazon.ca.